computer.
Got the nice little notice, recording in process. So we are on in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to this month's, and we're going to start that again. So I'm going to do another 3, 2, 1, because Steve, you're going to just cut that first part out, because I couldn't even say
I ain't editing anything. You're on.
I'm already on? Ah, crap. Welcome to this month in LabVIEW. It is a show, not a podcast. Well, maybe it is a podcast. Let Steve Watts fill you in on that one. We're also affectionately known as TMiLV or something like that. Steve, how did I pronounce that? TMiLV. Thank you.
So I was thinking about this. TMI is like too much information, right? When somebody tells you some story and you're like, oh, I don't need to know that.
TMI
LabVIEW.
Too much information about LabVIEW.
Yes, I like it. TMI LabVIEW.
Wanted to know.
Excellent. Too much information in LabVIEW. So we now have a new name. And that way, what I love about that name is then it doesn't say month. And now we can start doing it every other week since we are so incredibly organized as a team. So as we get started, I want to welcome everyone to our June show. And our goal here with this podcast, this show, is we want to keep it light. We keep it unedited. Steve, please unedit the very beginning. I know you're not going to, but anyhow, it is unedited. It's quick, and we've got a really big agenda today since we had NI Connect. So who are the LabVIEW co-conspirators that are part of this team? Well, you have the regulars. I'm Nancy Henson. I am the chief of the Connected Conversation. I try to keep things moving. And if I got to keep things moving, then I'm not allowed to start on rabbit trails. We have Steve, the professor of pragmatism and the gentleman that got this going and is keeping it going. And then we have Sam, the architect of adventure. And we also have our guest here today, Marck Hansen. So I am Nancy Henson. We have Marck Hansen. And Marck, I know you've been real involved in the European LabVIEW community. You were part of the Power LabVIEW user group back in the day. Putting you on the spot, give us a couple words about who you are and what you're really passionate about and your favorite board game.
My favorite board game, yeah. My name is Marck, and I work as a tech lead at G-Power, which is a Danish company that does LabVIEW development. I've been working at G-Power for 4 years and 5 months now, and I've been working as a tech lead, which is basically a combination between project manager and software developer. I specialize in both building LabVIEW applications, but also test stand a lot. I'm also part of the LabVIEW Champions community, which is a lot of people in this conspirator network. Yeah, as you mentioned, I play a lot of board games and also paint the minifigures myself. So that is something that I use some of my spare time for when not developing LabVIEW. And yeah, looking forward to talking with you about LabVIEW in this small community of conspirators. So thank you, Nancy, for the introduction.
You bet. We are super glad to have you on the show. I can only take too much of Steve and Sam in these 1 hour increments. So we need someone to break everything up a little bit. And it's great to have you. And anyone else out there, if you want to join us as a LabVIEW conspirator and part of the TMiLV this month in LabVIEW, TMI LabVIEW, let Steve Watts know and he'll make sure and get you plugged into our schedule. So hot news, NI Connect was absolutely fantastic. I was there, Sam, you were there, Steve, you were there remotely for part of it. So what I want to start off a little bit is just real briefly, there may be some people who are here today listening to the broadcast and they're not familiar with NI Connect, and maybe they're new to NI or new to LabVIEW, and there's NI Connect, and then there's distributor events, there's GDevCons. So Steve, could you just share a little high level view of, even though you didn't go this year, you were there last year, what is NI Connect and how does it compare to other NI or community sponsored events?
So it grew out of the ashes of NI Week, and it was mainly aimed at, when it started, the remit was to NI would be the connector between people who made things with NI stuff and people who needed things making with NI stuff. And and that was really the remit. I think it's never really shook off the fact that it grew from the ashes of NI week. So I would say it's pretty, looking to my view of it, it looked like NI week this time round, and it wasn't bad for it. I think it looked like a very good event from what I could see from the outside.
Yeah, several things came back this year. We had the Challenge the Champions. We
Hmm.
didn't have that in the last 2 years. Last year we brought back a track that is very LabVIEW developer centric, the Programming Essentials track. So I think it's great to see a couple of these things being brought back. And you're right, the emphasis is on, at least my impression, the emphasis is on connecting, and I think NI's doing a pretty good job there. What else? How else would you compare this to the GDevCons that we're going to be talking about, and maybe some of the regional NI tech exchanges that occur?
Well, it's like the audience for NI Connect is massive. I don't know what the attendance figures were, but it looked quite a lot of people.
It had to be a couple thousand. So
yeah, it was at least 1,000 this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? I didn't know those.
Well, PyCon had 25,000,
thousands,
and it felt like it was at least that big. So it was somewhere around 25. I would bet it's at least like 2,000.
Yeah, that's probably my feeling. I'd be surprised if it's. The advantage NI Connect always had is it was quite near to Austin, so you would, like any Austin NI events, you get access to sort of R&D people and developers and things like that. That always used to be, for me, one of the most useful parts of coming over to Austin and having an event there. The general sort of feel I got this year was very pro LabVIEW, which was very nice to see. And it felt quite good. I have to say, listening to the keynotes, I like Ritu as a speaker. I think she spoke really well. Normally I don't go to the keynotes. I find them uncomfortable. It's an English thing, I think. But I actually quite enjoyed her keynote. I thought it was quite good. And again, it was lovely to hear GDevCon on the keynote stage on the first day being mentioned. I thought the community events, all of the GLA summit, all the community events getting a mention on the main stage, that made me feel very positive. How it's different from GDevCons? Well, the GDevCons have little to do with NI really, apart from the product that is being discussed. So there's no marketing at all. Whereas NI Connect is quite a lot of marketing, which, that's the point of the event, like the NI days. So that's probably where I stand on it. Anyone else?
Yes, I like that. That's a good succinct. If we look at going back to NI week, way back in the day when they forced us to show up in Austin in August, when it was still 100 degrees at 9 p.m. at night, when we're trying to go find a place to go eat. It was the kickoff conference before the big trade show season. And so it always has a marketing import. It's very important for NI to get the messages out, the new products, the exciting things they're doing. And NI's always done a good job with NI Week of also making it an engineering event as well. And I think they're doing a great job of bringing the best of all of that together. And the emphasis on LabVIEW, 100%. It's great to see the leadership of Ritu and bringing NI back to our foundations at the same time that we continue to innovate in so many of the spaces that I say we, former NI, then NI continues to innovate in the spaces that they have been innovating in the past. So I was really thrilled and pumped after I came back from NI Connect. Sam, Mark, any comments on that? And then we're going to shift a little bit into PyCon.
I will hit a little bit on some of the things you said. So it felt like it wanted to try to be NI week, what NI week was. I think part of the missing part was that a lot of the people who drove the developer focus of NI week were people who were like captive at clients or customers, like large companies, and a lot of them did not come. So I think, the focus on NI's big customers and the consultants left out a lot of people who would normally come. So like there was no lava barbecue or any of that. And I think it would be really nice if we could somehow get that back. But to Steve's point, I think for me, the reason to go to NI Connect is if you are at one of NI's big accounts that they're trying to woo, or if you're a partner, there are reasons to go. Or if you need to talk to NI R&D, I think that's the other big selling point is that, you know, all the R&D people are there. You can go, you can ask them questions, you know, you can mix and mingle. If you actually want the NI marketing of like, this is our latest and greatest PXI products or whatever, then that's also a good place to get that. So that's kind of my take.
I think you have a really good action item. We're going to talk a little bit about Eli Carey here shortly. And I think we're going to give Eli a nice long list of things that we'd like to see next year. I think everyone would agree with you that Lava Barbecue, let's figure out how to bring that back next year. And, you know, what I'm seeing is every year we're able to bring back something else. And one of the things I think is really important based on what you're saying is we want a lot of key developers from all the alliance partners, from large accounts and small accounts, to see this as not just a connecting event, but also the engineering piece of that. And bringing back some of the fun stuff helps woo a few of us to get back there and truck down to Austin.
I think I
Mark,
saw-
anything on NI Connect?
Yeah, I think I saw that the badges are actually back. A couple of people posted that they got some badges they could fill out, and I think that's something that's been missing also for the last couple of years. I remember when I was at NI Week many years back, I didn't have much to put on my in regards to badges. So hopefully I can go back to reconnect and maybe show off some of my badges this time since they have improved a lot. So I think that's a very fun fact and a fun thing to implement back into the event.
Yeah, I definitely saw some of that, and then we're going to have even more badges. Thank you to gcentral.org, and you just gave me an action item there to make sure there's the appropriate connections on badges between gcentral.org and NI. All right, Sam, you went to a very different event right before NI Connect. So doing back-to-back conferences is pretty impressive. Tell us about where you were before you came to NI Connect, and what can we in the NI community learn from your experience?
Yeah, that's a good way for it. So right before NI Connect, I went to PyCon, which actually had the feel of the old NI week, and it was very developer centric. It was actually interesting. So for those of us who are worried that Python is taking over our jobs or whatever, certainly not this crowd. Most of them were focused on machine learning, AI, big data, a lot of data analytics, a lot of web stuff. There was one person who did a very interesting presentation about controlling a giant turbine with a Raspberry Pi, of all things. I don't know. That wouldn't have been my choice, but that's what they were using, which was kind of cool. But it did have some interesting things that I think we should check out. Like, so it had the keynote stage, it had an expo hall, kind of like a NI week. But one of the interesting things was they had the scheduled talks, but they also had a large open space track that was twice the size. So that was interesting. And another interesting thing actually that NI should probably look
into. What do you
into.
mean by open space track? Dive into
So
that.
open space is basically they had 10 rooms reserved for the entire time, and they had a big giant checkerboard, and you could go and reserve a room at a specific time for a specific topic. And basically you did it like basically the first day they put those up, and anybody could walk by and grab one, and they had post-it notes, and you stick a post-it on there and you say, I want to talk about, as an example, I put one that said Python in test and measurement. And I did a day on that or a thing on that, but there were like a variety of things. Some of them had nothing to do with LabVIEW. Some of them were about board games. Some of them were about outdoor activities. A lot of them were related to programming. There were like several security ones that I stopped in on. So I thought that was very interesting.
So we're trying to do something similar at GDevCon, and rather annoyingly, we were struggling with a name, and rather annoyingly, you told me about open space literally after we sent the email out with the name decided, which open space would have been a much better name. Everyone agreed. But there you go. So
this is kind of like the unconference concept. Basically, we're weaving in an unconference into a regular conference.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's very much the same thing. I think open space sounds a little bit better than unconference, just because like unconference, okay, well, like it is different from a regular conference, but I think calling it open space is more descriptive. There are two other things though that we should talk about. One, which I thought was really cool, is they had a Charla's talk track, which was all talks in Spanish, which I think is kind of cool. I think that could be something that NI might look at. I don't know if there's a large, I imagine there's a large Spanish speaking. I know there's the Latin American user group, LATAM. I don't know how many of those people actually attend NI Connect, but I thought that was cool. I got to sit and practice my Spanish. But the other
I
thing
think
that
if we had at least a day of sessions, that might attract a few people.
yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing that they had that was very interesting, they did this thing called sprints. And basically at the end of the conference, they had 3 days reserved where they reserved rooms and the conference paid for your lunch. And they had several open source projects that claimed a room. And basically you show up, you get free lunch, you sit there, and the people who run the project say, here are all the issues that we have at it. And it's kind of like a hackathon or whatever you want to call it. And people just sit and they work on it. And each project can kind of run it however they want. But there are people there, the maintainers of the project are there to sit down next to you and help you and help you get started and make sure that you can actually make a contribution that, hopefully by the end of that day or afternoon or however long you're there, you actually make a contribution, it gets pushed and it's in the actual final open source project. So that's kind of cool. So it's a way to
That is
support
really
source
cool.
projects. And I think
So it's collaborative. It's definitely collaborative as opposed to each person is kind of independently working on the solution. Is that
exactly.
accurate?
And in the thing, like if they want to do mob programming or whatever on some programming, they can do that. They can do pair programming. Everybody can work on their own individuals thing, and the people can float around. It's kind of like free form, from what I understand. I didn't stay for that because that part overlapped with NI Week, or NI Connect, so I went back to NI Connect. If I hadn't gone to NI Connect, I would have stuck around to check it out. So yeah, I think it's a cool thing, especially with NI's focus on open source and the icon editor, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I thought, hey, NI can sponsor this, and several of the rooms can be NI sponsored open source projects, and some can be some other open source projects like Karaya or whatever, some JKI thing or OpenG or whatever.
G Central, or anybody can do that. I love that idea. I think we need it. Let's just plan on, we're going to make that happen next year. And we're going to do the checkerboard. Okay, we're going to do open space. We're going to do the sprints, because most people will stay for, at least a half a day and going into Thursday and maybe Friday noon and then flying out. So we got 3 things: Lava Barbecue, open space, and the sprints. So yeah, I think Eli, take notes.
About the sprint is like it connects people because you're sitting down next to somebody coding. And also it's a good learning experience because like you sit down next to somebody else, even if they have less experience than you, they probably know some things that you don't, or know some ID short. Like for us old people who've been around, right? We might have a better broad programming base, but we don't know all the latest shortcuts and stuff, right? And we haven't taken the classes in a while, so they'll know some new features and stuff that we haven't seen or don't use. So it's a good way for us as experienced people to also kind of stay fresh and learn all the things that the new kids are learning.
I think that's fantastic.
I was training my daughter up in LabVIEW, and I was showing her the icon editor, and I was doing the icon. I put the text of the icon in, and I moved it by grabbing it and pulling it around. She goes, "What are you doing?" Do you mean what you're doing? So you can use your arrow keys for moving that around. You say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 25 years."
Your daughter corrected you. Oh my God!
So I didn't know that you could do that.
Oh my goodness. When I cross-post this on my LinkedIn, my headline is Steve Watts gets busted by his daughter. I've met your daughter. Or is this?
It's my youngest, but yeah, I get bested. I get bested by my daughters on a regular basis. It's not so. It wasn't a point of pride.
All right. Anything on NI Connect in general? We're gonna move into our B block where we get into some of the details emerging from NI Connect. High level, anything left?
I mean, I think the keynote on day 1 was good. Wasn't that interesting keynote on day 2. That lost me a bit.
I'll talk more about that. We're going to get into the keynote details in a moment.
Okay, cool. I've got nothing else.
All right. The hot topic, the biggest news that dropped from NI. I think there's 2 things that are competing for the biggest news in the LabVIEW world. One would be free licenses for students. But the other huge one is perpetual licenses are back. And I don't know when they're showing up exactly on the website, because I went to the website and I couldn't figure out how to get the drop down to show perpetual, and I even changed my length of my license to 3 years. So you guys are going to be more versed on what exactly is going on and what are your thoughts about it. We're excited about it. Who wants to start off?
I will just say, I don't think everybody should get excited about this, because if you think, oh, I'm just going to get a perpetual license instead of a subscription because I don't like the subscription, I don't think that's what they're going for. It was very clear to me that what they're going for is, if you're in a regulated industry or for some other reason you buy a contract or something, you absolutely have to have a perpetual license, or it's really hard for you to get funding for a subscription, they will give you a subscription. And I would expect to pay for that. So, they didn't release any information about pricing, but it's probably going to be pricey, because I think they want to encourage everybody in general to go for the subscription. And if you happen to have a use case where you absolutely need the perpetual, they will give you. I think that's kind of that was the marketing tone that I read out of it. So if you don't like the subscription, don't get all excited and say, I'm going to buy a perpetual license. I think you're going to be disappointed. So.
Yeah, I have actually requested one of these perpetual licenses, and it seems like it's bundled in a way where you actually pay the same price as if you bought a subscription license for 5 years in total. Then that is kind of the same as you would buy the LabVIEW license with 5 years included SSP. The way that you actually buy it is that if you scroll down on the page where you actually buy the LabVIEW license, you can actually request a quote, and then which then is divided up in different part numbers depending on what kind of version you want from the LabVIEW, if it's professional, full, or base, and then you will receive a quote. Yeah, the 5 years bundle thing is maybe not the best use case for many of the customers we currently are looking into to kind of go back. But hopefully, yeah, currently we are in some discussions with NI about this format, and hopefully something good will come out of it, and maybe a better solution in terms of how many years you need to buy the bundle for. So hopefully things
So
is
I want to
gonna.
make sure I'm clear on that, and I fully understand it, and I'm still trying to get the drop down to even say send the quote, but I'll figure that out by the time our show's over. So Mark, what I'm hearing is, unless someone is willing to sign up for the full 5 years, not 3 years, not 2, not 1, but they actually have to sign up for a full 5 years in order to get the perpetual license. Is that what I'm hearing based on what you're hearing?
That's what I understand. Yeah.
Yeah,
as far as-
I kind of heard it was like the pricing was basically the equivalent. So that's kind of what I heard. So like, you buy the perpetual license, but you're paying for basically several years of subscription. So it's several times the cost. It's kind of what I had heard. Is that where you're going? Like, it's not like signing up for something. It's basically just, you pay a price for the perpetual, you pay a price for the subscription. At some point, those two match, right? And it's several years out. So like after several years, if you had bought the subscription, you'd pay the same as you pay for a perpetual now. Something like that. Yeah. So the subscription is cheaper in that regard.
Yeah, I believe it's gonna be with the current pricing model, but what people is kind of asking for is how the old perpetual license was kind of structured, where you paid an upfront bigger price for the first year, and then the SSP would be some kind of percentages of the initial cost.
Yeah, what I understood was there was still the SSP. Yeah, so you buy the perpetual license and you can still pay the SSP thing.
But the SSP
So what happens
be
at the end of the SSP then? You just still get the license, but not updates.
I think so.
That's what it means by perpetual.
That's probably something to have Eric or Eli on and explain that. Maybe we'll invite one of them sometime.
Yeah, I think so.
We're probably blubbing some of them, but
yeah. I mean, it really, I suppose it addresses the I don't have ownership over my code, which I've not for a long time, and that was always a big issue for me. I've been on the partner license, which is a subscription license for donkey's years now, and personally, it's been great for my company. But I can understand that worry. People were talking about cost. See, to me, cost is a cost of doing business. It's LabVIEW's either not profitable for you to do or is profitable for you, and you make that decision. So the cost is a return on investment type decision. I'm a bit cold to that as a complaint. The worry for me was always, well, what happens? I've written all this source code. Now I don't have ownership of it because that I haven't paid my license, and that was always, it wasn't a major worry because I've obviously, I've been, like I say, I've been on a subscription for donkey's years, so it's not something I'm fretting about. But I could see why people were worried about that, and like you say, in certain industries, I think it covers that. Now, obviously,
Tim, you had your hand up. Oh, sorry.
That's a slightly controversial opinion because, we talked about it earlier, is you're up against Python, which is free, or C, which is free, or but LabVIEW ain't Python and it ain't C. It's more like Simulink, which ain't free, or it's a specialist bit of kit. So you're comparing apples and oranges, I think. But is the profiteering, and that's the thing that winds people up, it's are you taking advantage of somebody that needs something? It's that's probably where all the angst comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want to dive too deep into the whole pricing thing, but I do think that the people who are hurt by that pricing model are the casual users and people just want to try it out. I think that price tag kind of hurts that because, no, for like the subscription model, right? Like if you only do use LabVIEW for like a few months out of the year on one project, is it worth the subscription? I think those of us who use LabVIEW every day, like you said, it's a cost of business. And part of this goes into a discussion that I've been having is, one of the things that I talked to Eric about, and the subscription thing, he came to me, he said, tell me it doesn't give you that much value. And I was like, I know it gives me that much value because I've used it and I know that the subscription price is worth it. The problem that I see is if you're a new person who knows nothing about LabVIEW and you just look at LabVIEW and Python, it's really hard to see the value that LabVIEW brings. I mean, I think we need to make it really easy for people to try out LabVIEW and see the value that it brings.
But that's what the community edition is, presumably.
Well, so I'm going to toss something else. I'm going to toss something out here. And I've seen this also with the system link pricing, not quite aligning with maybe how some people are used to paying for software in industry. So if you're going to go buy SaaS software, you pay based on data and API calls. That way, if you are a very, very large spaceflight company or aerospace defense account, and you got this huge team of LabVIEW programmers that are constantly coding, they're going to pay more because their developers are, in their case, pushing data and making API calls, calling VIs all the time. Whereas, the guy in the lab who's just going to go run his experiment every week, he is going to pay so much less because he's not exercising the software as much. I was listening to another podcast recently, and I won't go to a rabbit trail there, but they were talking about just how the SaaS industry is going in general. They were talking about Salesforce.com taking a little bit in the market, and just thinking about what is the best way to have a pricing system that, what Steve, I think you guys, or what you both said, that really captures what is the value that this is bringing to me. LabVIEW brings me so much more value if I'm using it 24/7, or not quite 24/7, versus I'm using it once a month. And so let's put this on I'm going to put this on the Eric Siddharth list for our Future Champions meeting to really learn from them. And the fact that they were asking us some of these questions at NI Connect tells me that they're really digging into it. And it's probably a good time to engage directly.
I did also think that it was a management problem. I think I've worked with large accounts where everyone has a license for LabVIEW if they use it 20 minutes a year, or so, and that was a considerable, we need 400 seats. Well, no, you don't. You need a room full of LabVIEW programmers and enough seats for them, and people request it. Or you have a desk with, and get them to build executables which are license free.
Yeah.
There are management. You don't need a development system for a lot of projects.
I also think maybe an important part taken into consideration with all this pricing is that a couple of years ago, people had this, bought the licensing and had the active SSPs, running, so they know, okay, each year I'm going to pay this amount, and then suddenly everything stopped, and then you had to switch over to this subscription,
Oh yeah.
which was basically the double price, and now they can get the subscription, the perpetual license back. But I guess that what people would expect is a similar pricing range for that. So yeah, for a lot of users that have been using LabVIEW for many years and have kind of an idea, an estimate on what have they been paying for all these years, have considerable difficulty paying the more the increased price as this would require.
Well, and that raises then the question of risk, doesn't it? It's will they double it next year? Will they double it? I've lost control of this tool now because I've lost control of the cost of that tool, and that came front and center, I think. And that's the thing they have to undo, I think. That's the damage they have to undo.
Yeah, and I like Steve, this is twice now you've mentioned having control over the tool, and that with that move we lost control. I'm going to pivot our conversation just a tad to something that I found really exciting, but it also is a part of this conversation right here. So for those of us that are champions, and oh my gosh, LabVIEW Champions program is absolutely fantastic. And I kicked it off. Eric Riffett helped kicked it off maybe a decade and a half ago, and then he's really been driving it the last couple of years, doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Eric. And so we have a monthly champions meeting, and we have about an hour and a half, and we're all under NDA as individuals, and so we can't talk about all the things that happen in the meetings. And so I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think I'm saying anything that Eric or Eli or Siddharth is going to come tell me they're not happy with, and if they do, we'll edit the video. But what we did is we saw the LabVIEW roadmap, and it was very, very clearly articulated. And one of the big asks that we had as LabVIEW champions was every month at the beginning of our meeting, let's come back and look at that roadmap and get a monthly update on what is shifting. Where do you see the likelihood of something getting defunded, or where do you see things getting funded, like some of the open source projects that are going to be happening, so that it becomes more of an iterative conversation. I think the biggest challenge that we in the community have consistently had is that, as well-meaning as NI may be, when they're working on a product or a feature and then they release it, they did not engage the community soon enough and early enough such that we could influence that release. And sometimes it's just some conversations. It's basically, free R&D for NI for all intents and purposes when it's just conversational. But NI could be better leveraging, the community and some of our partners and consultants, so that that released product, or even a pre-release product, or even a technical release, is that much better, that much closer to being complete, and doesn't have quite as many thorns in it. So any comments on that? So my number one thing being, and I thank you so much with the roadmap, and that we're going to be talking about it monthly. How else, you guys, would we want to be more closely involved with NI? And this can be either within the context of our NI Connect conversation or outside of that.
Oh, go Sam, go.
I was gonna say I can go, but it might take us off topic a little bit. I had an interview
That's
with
okay.
Eli on the podcast recently, and we had a conversation about that, about NI. And one of the things that we talked about was Ed asked, talked about some refactoring tools and some tools that I thought should be built into LabVIEW. And I asked him if NI was interested in pursuing that. And his answer is actually really good. He said, we would like to facilitate the community pursuing that. And I think that's the right way to go, in the sense that there are certain things that only NI can do, and NI should do that. So like, for like tools in the IDE or something, just as an example, right? There are certain hooks that only NI can put in because they've got access to the source code and they can do stuff. But once it gets past that, we as a community know our needs better than NI does. And I think that's part of the problem, right? NI looks at it from, we're building this tool, but they don't really understand how it's used. And so I think that end user facing part, we can shape it a lot better. If NI takes their stab at refactoring tools, they'll give us something, and it may be useful, but it'll be more useful if we come up with it ourselves. So I think that's an interesting way to look at it, is like, on the things that are really going to be impactful to me, let the community drive it more. Right. And then we can go back to NI and say, hey, look, we want to do this thing. We need some hooks in LabVIEW. Can you add the hooks? And then NI can add the hooks for us. And I think that's a better model.
Yeah, I think if you commonly look back at projects, they would do them 90%, release them as finished. The team would get broken up, the R&D, everyone would go and lose and go on to the next project. And that project would be closed. And there's no way we can do anything to that project to get it to the 100% mark. And this is quite sad, really. It's a bit of a shame. Because there's quite a lot of really good IP out there that just ends up in the bin, really, of history. And actually, if they had opened it up, it would have carried on being used and useful. So, yeah, I agree. I really like it. I think people aren't really understanding how different this conversation is at this point in time, and the things that NI are talking about at this point in time than 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 15 years ago, or whatever. But this is a completely different conversation about.
I'm going to interrupt and make a quick connection, and then I'm going to come back to you, Steve. What you just said about getting the community involved, since I am the chief of Connected Conversation, I get to occasionally interrupt, and you guys can interrupt me. This goes back into exactly, Sam, what you were talking about on the, what was the term for it? It was the sprints. Having sprints at NI Connect then gives the community an opportunity to start working with NI and individuals from NI R&D on some of these projects, where we may need, as a community person, need to go back to get a little guidance from NI R&D, but the community effectively owns it, gets it to 100%, and then can even maintain it. And so I think those sprints might be a great way to facilitate exactly what you guys are talking about.
Perfect.
I just had my mind blown because I had an idea.
Wait.
Things I've heard you say,
Mic
Steve,
drop from Sam is coming. Mic drop from Sam is coming.
Is somewhat disconnected from what we actually do with LabVIEW, right? Like the actual process and code stuff. For these open source projects, have NI send the R&D people and have them just observe how we actually use the editor. And so, and granted, okay, we're working on open source projects. We're probably not talking to hardware, we're probably not doing but we're still using the editor, and they can watch and see how we do stuff and maybe even participate.
Well,
and
I think the misconception is that you open up GitHub page and that project is now open source. Well, no. What you need is
available.
The domain expert needs to train up the rest of the team in how to use that product. So take the icon editor, which has been released. I've just downloaded it. What you now need is to sit in a room with the people that have developed it and say, well, this is where we were going with this. This is this architecture, because it's not a tiny project. It's a relatively large project, and that you would need, and the setting up the environment. So it blew my mind. There are tools to set up your LabVIEW environment so you can edit the icon editor.
I'm going to kind of get us moving along just a tad, and because we have a couple more things, and I'm going to let you guys pop into the send me a note on what is your stop time, how many minutes past the hour. I think we probably have at least about another 20 more minutes, so this is a little bit of a time check, because there are other things on the list. Sam, did you meet Nikita Fallon?
Did I meet who?
There's a young lady, Nikita Fallon. She is part of Siddharth and Rudy's team. She is very actively making sure that people within R&D get connected to some of our customers. I think, Sam, I would love to see you talk to Nikita, so that, like, if I'm an R&D person, I might not necessarily know what do I need to be looking for when I'm sitting next to the customer. And I may ask some very well-meaning questions, but not take the time to watch the workflow and observe the workflow that you're talking about. So I have an action item to set up a meeting with you and Nikita, and I think that'd be very, very helpful for her team.
I did meet, there was someone from R&D hanging around. His name was Malcolm. I don't know if you know Malcolm.
Yes, Malcolm. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to him very much, but he asked some very good questions. He seemed to be paying attention. So he's probably also another one that, like, he definitely seemed to follow the track of the conversation. It was definitely someone to talk to some more. So that's
He's on my list of people to follow up with that I haven't done much with. Yeah. So Mark.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to just kind of like insert yourself.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you won't get a word in.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this one?
I haven't been looking too much into the icon editor, but I think the whole open source idea is awesome. I think it's gonna move a lot of the key component of LabVIEW when it gets there to entirely new heights, I guess. I'm not sure if that's ever gonna be on the topic, but I'm hoping something like that for NI package manager in some parts be up for discussion, also in regards to both roadmap and maybe features or something like that, because I see that has a lot of, in my opinion, missing features. So I hope that at one time this could be part of the open source community, but I have no idea about the plans for that. But
yeah, I'm gonna share a little bit of insight from my days at NI when we were really pushing for open source. I think there have been several individuals in the community that have been doing a great job at pushing NI to do more open source. Some of us on this phone call in particular. And what I like about what Eric Ruffett and what the NI R&D team has chosen, they've chosen something that's tightly scoped. And one of the bigger concerns that was explained to me was that if we're going to start open sourcing things, we need, the community needs to understand NI and NI's processes and how NI does things, and open sourcing things. And Sam, I think you've talked about this. I think Or Kempel's talked about this. Going down an open source path with something like, oh, we're going to open source LabVIEW. No, we're not open sourcing LabVIEW today. That's not going to happen. But open source projects can be very, very large, very, very complicated. And I think NI is doing a good job in picking out something that's tightly scoped and can, in which both the community and NI can demonstrate success, learn from one another, and then move it to something bigger. Any other comments on that? But I wanted to mention the fact that part of open source isn't just this great thing. Oh, we're going to open source it and life's perfect. No, it takes effort and an appreciation of the processes that NI has to go through and what the community typically goes through.
I think that's actually one of the keys for this thing to be successful, because if I go and I make a change to the icon editor and then it does not get sucked into the icon editor for whatever reason, because I didn't follow the proper procedures or there's some, right? That's very frustrating on the part of the developer. Now, I mean, granted, it's open source. Okay, I can still use that in my own instance and whatever. But if my intention is to contribute and that contribution just goes into a black hole and doesn't see the light of day, that's very disconcerting. So I think like having a clear path for here's how you contribute, here's how it gets right, and just making that clear. And that's not to say that like every change gets approved or whatever, but like there has to be a clear path for like these are the steps you take to get your contribution into the icon editor and getting it shipped, I think.
Excellent. I'm going to move us on to, we're still sort of on the topic of NI Connect. And I do want to send out kudos to Eli. I had a meeting, poor Eli, I had a meeting with Brian Powell, Chris Roebuck, and Eli at 4 o'clock on Wednesday at the end of a nonstop conference. And I was glad Eli was beat. And I was so glad to hear that he and his wife, Megan, were taking off on vacation immediately following the following week. But Eli was a machine, and he was on the stage. He has been in this role previously. He knows the community. What I appreciate about Eli is he also understands the source code and he understands R&D, and there's a lot of things he can make happen. And so I had a point there, and the point just left my head and it's not in my notes. But I wanted to bring up kind of the day one keynote. And Steve, I think you may have had some additional things to say. I know you were speaking highly of R2 and the fact that LabVIEW was front and center on that day one keynote. Is there anything else from the day one keynote that anybody wants to bring up?
I thought the examples they had were nice and practical. So the case studies, I thought they were nice and practical, and they showed LabVIEW in a complex, difficult environment, doing complex, difficult things. That's the kind of, I prefer that to the gimmicky stuff personally, because that's a better sell for me. Is look at this tool, you're paying lots of money for it, and it can do really, really hard stuff. That's what I like. So yeah, that's part of my takeaway from day one.
Anybody else have comments on day one? Even some of the announcements, new hardware, anything else
I mean,
before I shift this a little bit?
No, I was just gonna say I like the general focus on LabVIEW, and like with my LabVIEW champion, LabVIEW enthusiast hat on, I'm happy with the direction that NI is taking with regards to LabVIEW. So
yeah,
overall.
I think there was new hardware. It wasn't a lot, but I think this is a hangover from the Emerson takeover. I think a lot got frozen and pushed back and pushed around in the timetable. So there's a new network analyzer, single slot PXIe 5633. It's probably very much out of my budget. Instrument Studio Pro release in July, I'm just reading. And you get some custom LabVIEW stuff in that to do. There's a GitHub page where you can just download the measurement link.
Yeah, I want to take a look at that. And one of the people we might want to invite on is a gentleman very involved kind of with measurement link and instrument link, because it's probably been about 3 or 4 years where LabVIEW has an SDK, just a simple SDK, such that you can take any LabVIEW front panel and it gets plugged into instrument link. And then there's a lot of connectivity back to test stand. And that was just the LabVIEW plugins for Instrument Studio, and then there's Measurement Link. So there's, I need to go figure out what's what and how everything connects. But I think diving in to that and maybe a future TMiLV this month in LabVIEW would be really good.
Yeah, and LabVIEW 2024 Q3 is going to have all the beta features in Q1. Which is Active Save, and I think Active Save is one of those little quiet updates that is people are going to find in 3 or 4 years' time they're going to be using for everything. And it's kind of a nice one for supporting toolkits and things like that. So it's kind of an important quiet update. And in Q3 they're going to fix the if ever you watched me playing with Raspberry, my little embedded computers and Linux, it's going to fix the Linux bug which came in 24 Q1, which is ugly 4 next loops. They're going to make 4 next loops pretty again. Yeah, that could be their tagline. 2024 Q3, we're making 4 next loops in Linux pretty again.
There was a Linux session at NI Connect, and I went to that, and it was very good.
Was it? I wanted to go to that one.
Yeah, so they ran it as a lean coffee style meeting, which is basically you solicit all the topics from the audience and then you vote on them and you rank them, and it's really cool. If anybody wants to learn how to run those style of meetings, at GDevCon NA, we're having a leadership workshop the day before, and that is one of the topics that they will cover is how to run meetings.
Cool.
But I quite like that style of meeting, and there were a lot of topics that came up, and it was very clear to me that NI is very much invested in LabVIEW on Linux, and I think that's a great thing. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
If I get my way, you're going to see a lot more of it because I'm pushing it everywhere.
Yeah, I honestly, the only thing that's stopping me from moving completely to Linux and like throwing Windows away is the VIPM API does not work on Linux yet. Jim, nudge, nudge. I know he's got lots of priorities, but that is the only thing. Otherwise, I would completely do everything in Linux right now. The other thing is that a lot of customers don't use Linux, but if you're doing turnkey systems where you supply the computer and everything, why not?
And embedded systems. Yeah. Beautiful for embedded systems. I'm using it for that and making money on it.
Yeah. And actually,
comment on Linux.
Even if you're doing desktop apps, you could package it in a virtual machine and give them a virtual machine or something that runs on Windows and in Hyper-V or whatever. And with with the USB pass through and Ethernet access, a lot of instruments are Ethernet anymore.
Well, if you're careful with how you choose your instrumentation, there's all you need is NI Visa, and that's very, very easy to install into LabVIEW, into Linux.
So
it's one command line. It's very simple.
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting comment. All you need is NI Visa. As it relates to some of the NI drivers, some of the NI hardware, are there capabilities that might be buried in a driver that is not exposed to NI Visa?
I do remember years and years ago, you used to be able to get to the I have actually done it. You used to be able to get to the USB sort of overlay through Visa as well. There was a way to actually get right into the USB side through Visa, which you could probably again do. But I found that the general instrument support was patchy. So the first thing I wanted to do was use a scope. So does it work with my USB scope? No, it doesn't work with NI scope or it does for certain scopes. But it's all, if you're speccing a system, you can't have those gaps. Because you're buying a piece of equipment for a system, so you can't take a risk on that. So you then go, well, what do I use? Well, LXI, Visa. Everything works fine because it's just commands, so
Commands back and forth. Exactly. Speaking of commands back and forth, Steve, you actually did show up to NI Connect, and you made Derek Bomarito and myself famous since we're on NI's clip that we saw recently. Let's shift a little bit and talk about the Community Training Initiative.
Yes, my little pet project. It's yes, we got onto the NI highlights video.
That's fun. And speaking of which, my long-awaited video for I think it's 9 minutes or so, and I talk about kind of the 3 things that I see the Community Training Initiative bringing to the table, but for hands-on and for learning LabVIEW in general. I bring those up. Go to my LinkedIn and you'll see the video there.
I'm looking forward to that. The interesting, well, I don't know, I wasn't in the room, so I didn't get any feedback. So all you had really was my big face in the room. Now Derek kindly set up a camera so I could see people, and there seemed to be a lot of engagement. The Discord channel got a lot of people come on it immediately afterwards, which was nice. So I don't know, a lot of these things happen after the meeting, don't they? People talk to you, so I don't know what you're probably better placed to give me feedback about how well it went and how well it was received, and if it was received by NI at all.
One of the biggest pieces of feedback I got, or interest I got, was the fact that Mallory Martin was sitting in the room. And for those enjoying our broadcast today, Mallory Martin has been a figure in customer education since I don't know how long, and she was also someone who was very instrumental in the success of the CLA summits, the Certified LabVIEW Architect summits that we had back in the day. And so she's still very involved within the education services aspect of NI. And I personally see a great handshake between CTI and NI training, or any other training that's out there. There's the NI training, and our friend Mark Ridgely does a lot of those. We see him on LinkedIn flying all over the place, teaching LabVIEW. In fact, I think he's down the street right now. And then, George T in the UK has training. Piotr Ma has some good training. But CTI, I think, is a very good fit in that it's open source, it's customizable, so that I could go work with one of my peers who may have tons of training credits, and all of his engineers go take the basic training, but then let's build out some things on the CTI such that after his students and some of the kids out of college have taken the basic training, they can then learn to code in the style that my friend Joe, would like them to code in. And they're gonna do it with the basic, commands. Send this, get the data back. They can take the Raspberry Pi Pico home and play around with it. you know, during some sporting event or football playoff. I'm thinking the football playoffs yesterday, not American football, Steve. So so I think there's a lot of value there. I think it was well received. I think what we need to do is, myself included, demonstrate the value by starting to make some of the edits to the manual, add some features to the manual, do some forks, things like that. And then I think it'll be a little bit clearer to those in the broader community and NI how it fits in. So Mark, I got a question for you about at G-Power, because you guys really are a powerhouse of amazing LabVIEW programmers. And is the philosophy at G-Power really to bring people in, or do you all end up doing some custom training? And what are some ways in which either kind of an open source approach to training or anything along those lines that could benefit you guys? And I know I just put you on the spot with that question.
Yeah, we are actually at G-Power also providing LabVIEW training in Danish, of course, which is done in a way where people can actually sign up on our webpage. And I believe also it's CMRoot or something like that, that is a distributor in Europe or something like that. So if people like, I think, contact them in regards to LabVIEW training, then they would refer to us, and then we have courses we are teaching. I believe it's once a year now, and yeah, I'm actually gonna teach the next basic LabVIEW course we have in the yeah, I can't remember when it is. It's it's in Q4 or something like that in this year. So yeah, so we do training, and yeah. How to
Plug your training. Where is it going to be held? The one that you're teaching?
Yeah, we are not quite sure on the planning as of yet, because sometimes a lot of people from maybe a specific company or something like that that is based in maybe in Copenhagen or close to that, which is yeah, not around the corner from where G-Power is located. It's located in Jutland in Aarhus. So we might, if most people are coming from Copenhagen, make the course at over at their place, and then would be yeah, us who goes to Copenhagen to their company, or it would be something close to G-Power where we have a hotel or something like that. It also depends a little bit on the number of people attending the course, I guess, whether or not we can have it in our own facilities in Aarhus, or we are going to rent some conference room or something like that. So it's, yeah, it's actually something where we have, sorry.
Let's figure out, I want to figure out, how do we do a better job in the community of promoting you teaching the NI course? And because the value of you being in there as the instructor in the room with those students,
yeah,
we should fill up the course so that NI has to put a second one on the schedule. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that would be great. Actually, it's not an official NI course. It's something we have developed ourselves around kind of, yeah, Steve is gonna not agree with me, but yeah, in our philosophy, something like object-oriented programming is kind of a very important part of like programming in LabVIEW. Not that everything should be done in object-oriented programming, but in our philosophy, it's kind of late to have it after the core tree or as part of the advanced. So there's a couple of things there. So yeah.
So this is what I love about our group here is, Mark, I don't know if you're watching, Sam's doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this. And Steve's doing, I don't know. But what's great though is that you guys are seeing a need, and you've crafted your training around something you see valuable within your group and your community that you're programming with. And what the interesting question I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to keep us rolling here so that we can actually get done maybe in 65 to 70 minutes total.
Mhm.
And that is, it would be, I'm going to ping you later, but one of the things I would like to do is with the CTI, bring some more object-oriented lessons into it. And maybe there's some things that you guys, we can work together. And it ends up going open source as part of CTI, but we at least say, hey, this came from G-Power, boom, boom, boom.
So I'll give you so you're a bit cagey there about competing against NI, and I think that's one of the problems with NI having the control of the training, is that you feel like you're competing with them. And we were much the same when we do DSH workshops and the like, as we don't want to compete with NI. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong. We should be competing with NI, and we should, because for the whole ecosystem, the best training is the best training. It's not, oh, I don't want to do this course because it might hurt somebody in NI's feelings. It's the best training, and the market will work that out, what the best training is. And it's,
I had some
and
good
it's all
conversations.
skewed now. I know that that's one of the things I'm trying to break.
Also, one thing,
and I'm definitely with you on that. I'm sorry. Go, Mark.
No, I just say one thing we're also trying to do is kind of bundle things together. So we might have like a LabVIEW course on 2 to 3 days, and then after those 2 to 3 days, we might have a test stand course in combination, so people can actually schedule both things and get kind of an overall knowledge about both test stand and LabVIEW, and try to maybe use some of the things from the LabVIEW course in the practical test stand course afterwards. Now I know that we don't have a community edition of test stand, but a lot of the customers we are kind of providing stuff like consultancy help with use test stand as part of that. So we kind of combine that and also teach good good programming, how to say, behavior when you trying to structure a test sequence and all that stuff. And also there's a lot of things where you in test stand can both build drivers and and I know a lot of that is also covered in the NI courses that they have with both test stand and LabVIEW, but we have kind of taken our own spin on that, and also kind of done it in a way so it helps you understand maybe some of the solutions that we are using with using custom step types in test stand and stuff like that. So it's in my opinion, it's a better bundle of knowledge that you get, and in that way that it's structured around in that way.
I like that, because I like the fact that there's the intentionality on not just separating these things as two different products. And I think with NI being a software product company and having to do product sales, they forget that the nuance of this is software. Yes, it's products, but it's software that I'm stitching together, and I'm stitching this piece of test stand with this other piece. Here's these custom step types that can be very valuable. What's the best way to use them? So quick question, Mark, do you guys, is your training all just in person, or do you guys have some training material on your G-Power website?
No, everything is instructor-led in person. That's kind of our philosophy, because we think that there's a lot of people that is doing actually the remote or the internet-based teaching courses online from lots of different companies, and what we believe is that what most of our customers is actually asking for is the in-person instructor-led courses. As a side note, I can say, but it's maybe stupid to say, but I've been working on actually an online free-to-use LabVIEW course on my own webpage for a couple of years, but unfortunately,
cool. Awesome.
I think Sam knows, but it's been a long time, and my problem is I'm not a web website builder, so I have a lot of trouble with getting everything to work with the WordPress and everything. As soon as I get everything up, something crashes in some in some plugin
So Mark,
for that.
maybe
Yeah.
what me and we do is I may invite you to a G Central board meeting. There's a couple guys there that are pretty good at some of that. And I would like to find more ways to promote what you guys are doing as well. So I definitely have a takeaway and maybe make some connections there to
Yeah,
make
you know,
your life
Jasper is on
easier.
the. Yeah, he's also
Jasper's
from
on there.
G-Power.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay, because he's
Yeah.
because he's G-Power.
Yeah.
Duh.
We
The
all
connector
over the
person did
place.
not
Yeah.
make that connection. All right, I'm going to move us on real quickly, and I'm going to touch on this very, very briefly because we want to talk about the community. We can come back to this topic. Yeah, all of us that went to NI Connect last year, we saw some cool demos with regards to Nigel and NI. Nigel's NI's machine learning, our language model. That's the term. Is NI's language model, is doing a bunch of fun stuff. And it was a really fascinating keynote, I felt like, with both, it was Shruti and Michael Phillips did a demo where they started with, oh, here are your requirements, and here's how our tool can take the requirements, create actual test steps. Here's some other automation that we can do with AI. Now, my first question is, how many of us actually have customers that create requirements documents? I think that's the first challenge. But it was really fascinating to see them do that. And then there was the ability of leveraging AI to help them figure out, well, what should our test limits be? So I'm going to do a plug here real quickly, and we're going to come back to this next month. There was a gentleman, his name is Chris Turner. He's from ResMed, and he spoke at GDevCon Australia, New Zealand, and he's not a LabVIEW customer, and he's never used test stand, but he is an expert at really deriving test limits based on understanding his DUT. And fortunately, all the videos for GDevCon Australia, New Zealand that they held, I got a chance to show up and attend and meet everyone. But Chris Farmer, Kurt Friday, and Karina, they hosted this event in Sydney, Australia, end of October last year. I think they're going to host this again in 2 years. I think we'll get more details for next month. But those videos are starting to drop on YouTube, and then eventually you'll be able to see Chris Turner's video. And then I'll just connect Chris Turner to some of the stuff that we saw on the keynote stage, and I think that will be a fantastic conversation. I'm going to make a couple of quick comments and then turn it over to you guys on AI. I want to keep this really short. I have a variety of comments, and there's some interesting takeaways here, but in following the keynote and reading some of the things that NI has put out, I think they're doing a very good job framing things. The reality is, and having taken an AI course from Kellogg Northwestern, one of those executive education things that's online, over and over they stressed 70% of an AI project is cleaning data, especially when we're moving into the space for the first time. There's so many different amazing things where AI can be used. So it's great to see NI's leadership and leadership from partners. Just like nobody can run a company without the internet today, that's kind of where we're going to be in about 10 years. So 70% of the effort is cleaning data. A key piece, and I cannot remember exactly the term that they were using, that Michael was using. I think it was expert guided. And so this was not a turnkey AI is going to do the whole thing, but it's balancing what AI does well with putting the human in the middle or the human in the loop. That term is used interchangeably, but it's ensuring that there's a human in the middle of the process. There's a lot of things that might be guided on the front end by the human in the middle. And so they definitely mentioned that. Third quick thing, and I'll put a link to a post that somebody else made not too long ago. But when it comes to replacing humans, when I was with my peers in my AI course, my comment was, figure out how AI is going to replace you. If I can figure out how AI is going to replace me, then I can be a little bit more strategic in how I leverage AI. AI is not some intelligent being. It's not smart. It's just a freaking algorithm that's really badass at doing certain things. And so if I figure out what that algorithm's really good at, then I can use that algorithm and then upskill myself so that I'm not replaced. So I want to open it up to some quick comments on AI. Then I'm going to close out with a comment, and then we'll move into community.
I think AI is being oversold, like so many things are being oversold. We live in a overselling time where people from San Francisco make wild promises and make billions and billions of pounds for making those wild promises. So
regardless of whether they come true.
They won't.
Right?
They don't come true
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they
They
don't
just
come
make
true.
money on the promise.
They you know. So you see Sam Altman making all his money and go, AI will replace all doctors next year, and everyone and all the venture capitalists give him loads and loads of money, and there's no loss to that because he just takes all that money, and VCs don't seem to care. That is beginning to change. I think VCs are beginning to care. I think interest rates do that. And I think it's a shame. It's a shame now that anyone in the tech industry is getting tired with that brush, because engineering's hard, software's hard. You can't automate it. They've been trying to automate me out of the system for 40 years. You know, I had Case Tools Case Tools in 1996 were going to put me out of a job. Still here. I'm still here, and the job is still hard for a human. And requirements, if they're good enough for an AI to do something with, they are harder to write than software. You know, good requirements.
I think that's a really good point.
Requirements that are that good that an AI could use them is much harder to write than software. Because, and the people pushing it don't understand because they've never written software in their life. You know, and they're assholes, all of them. Sorry. I'm quite angry, really. But behind this,
Steve, what I love about you is when you're angry, it doesn't feel angry. You're just a little spicy and fired up, and
get a cold fury.
Probably time for a pint or two on your side of the planet there, but. And that's why I made that subtle snarky comment on the requirements. You know, I've taught LabVIEW courses when I've talked to individuals. It's like, okay, tell me about your requirements. It's like, oh yeah, they gave me a one-liner requirement. So it is. I firmly agree, and I think there's going to be some targeted places where AI can benefit us. And Sam, I think you and I may have talked about this. I think the big challenge is going to be when people start to use AI to write some of the smaller software projects, or, hey, get a voltage from a DMM, that's the project that the kid out of college would do to learn software. And so I think the bringing people up the software learning curve is going to be a very interesting conversation.
I think,
or Sam, or Steve.
I think the very people that will benefit most from it are actually us old timers, because we have the wherewithal to decipher the potential lies in the replies. And if you start off believing ChatGPT is going to give you an accurate answer, and you don't have the wherewithal to decipher that, that's not a good starting position, which is probably the foundational point you were making there, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It takes time to develop the wisdom. What is it? The 10,000 hours to become, the master and not the apprentice.
Yeah.
And that takes time. For instance, my son's mechanic at our local Land Rover dealership, and he can see and feel and hear things. He can't, even the best tools out there aren't going to replace him in the near future. My daughter was on a production line for a food manufacturer, and there's individuals, they just know how those machines work. So there's so many different things that we as humans, we have all these senses, and that's all not going to be replaced anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I tend to agree with Steve's thoughts. I tend to be more of a skeptic, but I do think there is so first of all, people conflate AI and LLMs, and there's this craze about LLMs right now, but artificial intelligence has been around for a while. Machine learning has been around for a while. It is a useful tool, and there's a pragmatic way to use it. I highly encourage, there's two people I encourage people to follow, and that is Llewellyn Falco and Ray Myers. And I threw some links in the document for you, Nancy. Maybe you can throw
Okay,
this on YouTube.
perfect. We'll get those out.
But they both have a very practical stance on AI, and they're looking at, like, from the point of view of a developer, like, what is this tool? What can it actually do, and how can we use it? And Llewellyn is far more optimistic than I am, but he has gotten to do some really cool stuff, and he's very much like looking at, like, how can you fit it into your actual workflow, and doing things like, okay, if I write a test, can I have it write the code that makes the test pass, or can I have it write a test and then I write the code, and then and so there's some interesting use cases there, and a lot of it is in how you use it. And I 100% agree with Steve. Honestly, I think this is all a stupid con game. I think they're just like throwing AI and everything so they can raise money, and then they just take their money and run and leave everybody else holding the bag. And I think it's crap. But at the same time, it does have some good applications. There are some useful applications. And so I think it's sorting through all of the hype and figuring out, okay, what is this and can we actually use it? Because I mean, we use AI stuff all the time. I mean, Siri in your phone was using AI to analyze your voice and pull out what you actually said. So, like, it's not, the LLM thing is nothing new. What's new is all the hype. So that's
I saw a couple of presentations a couple of weeks ago, not related to this kind of AI, but more of how you could use it in a daily function or work requirement environment. And this was focused around like PowerPoint presentations where you had, like, let's say you had like a meat-free day in your canteen or something like that for lunch. And then this AI could help you kind of make that presentation in PowerPoint easily, with Copilot finding images of food and stuff like that, and helping come up with some valid arguments for why should you have like this meat-free day and stuff like that. So I think that portion of it was pretty good, and I think for smaller tasks like that, like small PowerPoint presentations or something like that, that could be very useful for a start. Yeah.
That reminds me of a stupid little thing that, like, I get a text and it says, hey, do you want to meet Monday at 2:00 on my phone? And immediately the Monday 2:00 is highlighted, and I can click on it and add an appointment to my calendar. Like, that's something stupid and little, but like, it's useful. So, like, to say, like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like AI is completely useless, but I really think that the hype is just a solution in search of a problem. They're like, we can't do this cool LLM stuff. Let's stick it everywhere. And I think I'm much more of a start with the problem you want to solve and then figure out how to solve it, as opposed to invent some cool thing and then just try to force fit it into everything. And I think that's entirely the wrong way to go about it.
I'm gonna give Steve the last
last
thing,
rant.
and then I'm gonna close this out and go to community. Got one last one, Steve?
I think the human voice is nice. I think people, I find the little button on LinkedIn, you could rewrite this in AI to be extremely offensive. Why? Because what you end up with is, already on LinkedIn, 90% of the posts are written by AI, approved, liked by AI bots. Well, and what happens is you just close it and never go to LinkedIn again, because what's the point? There's nothing of value in any of this. And I think all the examples given are very creative, ultimately without value. It's, if you've ever watched or ever read the book Bullshit Jobs, AI is coming to take your bullshit job. And that's because nobody cares about the output. Digital marketing, nobody cares. It's just,
So I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna close this out on this topic, and then we can come back to it again next month. One of the things I noticed, there was an individual who on LinkedIn claimed to be a thought leader, and everything he wrote on LinkedIn was AI generated. And it's like, I spotted it early, and then I found this little tool that can determine how much of it is AI written. And then I looked at somebody else's stuff recently, and he said he wrote it, and I know that was partially AI written. Now, I'm okay with Grammarly making sure some of my, I punctuate things correctly, but there's a time and place where I'm writing it. This is my voice, and Steve, getting back to what you were saying, It's about my experiences, your experiences. We ideally are meeting in 3D at events and conferences and having unique experiences. We are uniquely human. And I'm going to pull a quote from an article from NI that I utterly disagree with. Because I said NI is doing a lot of good things, and I liked a lot of what they've said. And they did say, on a positive side, in an article, to nurture teams' creativity and unique expertise. That's great. I wholeheartedly agree with that. When I do speaking and when I speak at GDevCon in NA, I'm going to talk about this and a differential between, like, okay, we are humans, we have for human creativity. That little AI thing is just a freaking algorithm. But I read the sentence that says, we look forward to AI moving from its current use as a tool, and when it becomes a peer for collaboration and idea execution. I'm like, that I find disturbing, because as soon as you start saying that this fancy algorithm is a human, then it's diminishing and demeaning to humans at that point. Treat it for what it is. It's a fancy algorithm, no matter how it feels. So that's my last statement on AI. So real quickly, let's talk about events. I'm gonna make one comment real quickly from a community perspective. In the past, we have had the LabVIEW Center of Excellence program, where someone can come in and get certified by NI based on their processes, software development processes. There's a bunch of stuff up on ni.com/COE. Eli is refreshing that. And so LabVIEW Center of Excellence and being audited. And if you want to get audited and you need help, that's when you go to DSH workshops, and when you go to SAS workshops, because between SAS and DSH, they can get you there. And a few other people can as well. But as far as actually being audited and passing an audit and being a certified center of excellence and having an official program where you get recertified, blah, 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 that is becoming a thing. Email me at nancy.hansen@protonmail.com if you have questions. Community stuff, GDevCons.
So Europe, the agenda has been announced. So we've got some excellent presenters. The picking of the presenters was as traumatic to me as it always is. So we had 32 submissions. We could only actually fit 16, but what we're trying to do with the huddle, as we call it, but the open space, is allow people to have time to put their ideas across as well. So we're very excited about that as a whole concept. So yes, we love our presenters. Thank you very much, all our presenters. I'm sorry to anyone who didn't get picked this year. There was one clear reject out of the 32, and that was just, we give instructions, people don't read the instructions. We give guidance, but 31 I would have picked and been happier with them in the conference. So it's a absolutely blind vote. We none of us know who the people are unless they make it absolutely easy for us to decipher, but generally that doesn't help. So yeah, that's
Mark, are you going? Stuttgart?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think we are 6 people from G-Power that's going to attend this year.
Sponsor.
Yeah.
G-Power,
Yeah.
sponsor.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, G-Power. We love G-Power.
So yeah, maybe I'm gonna attend, but one of our senior specialists, Jens Christian, is actually going to present about going against Darren's advice, being successful with PLLs. So I think that's going to be a great presentation. I actually thought that Jasper was going to present also, but he's not on the link. But,
no, I thought I looked through the list of presenters and I thought, I don't know. Yeah. On the getting your presentation not accepted, I will say I've had mine not accepted in past years at GDevCon. So yeah, it happens.
Sam, are you nervous yet about GDevCon NA?
Am I nervous? Yeah, I mean, next year makes me nervous because we're moving to a new location. So that's
a lot of work.
It's old hat. We've done it several times. It's kind of just like, And also, shout out to Taylor. We hired Taylor to help us run things. And yeah, I just know we
Taylor's
hired
awesome.
her and she's gonna make it happen, and that's it. And I just have to like sit back and enjoy the ride. So
No matter how well things are going, I can't be a part of sponsoring an event and not be constantly nervous.
Oh, Nancy,
But I am. What's that?
you're on our sponsors list as well, aren't you, Nancy? Did I?
If I
No, we're talking about
haven't-
it. Sorry.
Yeah, we're talking about it, and we're going to talk more about it when we get off the call, because I'm definitely sponsoring, especially now I know you guys have this open space thing. But Sam, I am super excited about GDevCon NA. Last year was absolutely fantastic. What I loved is we had a lot of new faces. We had individuals bringing their team of engineers. And I think that's where GDevCon shines, all the GDevCons, because the sessions will go everywhere from kind of more generic to intermediate to advanced. And, you know, where we've got the table set up, we can have great conversation, is the perfect place for a manager of a LabVIEW team to bring some of her developers or bring her top architects. And then again, with the vision, Steve, that you guys had at the beginning of, it's not just a GDevCon event, it is the fact that we're sandwiched some other events on the front end and the back end. And so it is immersing oneself into being an amazing person in this space with LabVIEW and our surrounding tools. It's GDevCon is the place to go. So, you know, whether you are in manager and you're in automotive, medical devices, energy, aerospace defense, space flight, this is the place to bring your team for you guys to kind of grow as a group. So I can't stress that more than I just did. And so, you know, thank you to all of you guys that are putting all the real hard work in. Sam, I love what you guys have done with the gentleman developing the keynote. He's going to be fantastic. I caught most of the podcasts you had with him, and the fact he's given us our avatars that we'll be using is also fantastic. Sam, do you have anything else on GDevCon before we have final comment? Well, one more thing before final comments will be Summer of LabVIEW. So we want to touch on Summer of LabVIEW real quick, and then final comments.
If I may, I think, Steve, did you mention that there's going to be some small part of the GDevCon Europe that is going to be like a little bit like this, where there's no topics and people can kind of speak free?
We got a free day event, and the actual presentations finish at 2:00. So between 2 and 5, we're going to be having a free form event.
Yeah.
So, and people can book rooms and things like that and spaces, but essentially it's ad hoc to a point. I'm trying to make it more ad hoc, but but it's also time for people who are sponsors and that to be demonstrating stuff, and hardware vendors to be demonstrating stuff. You know, it's all to give people time. If you're doing an open source project, time to get together. So it's a free space, is it? So open space was a very good name for it.
Just wanted to comment on. I think that's a great addition to the GDevCon this year.
I'm hopeful. We try to experiment every year. We try something new. It's a, you know, it's always a risk, but this is what we're going to try. I like the idea, but we'll see if it's a success or not.
I highly encourage experiments. I feel like one of the things we fall into the trap of, and we've done this at GDevCon NA, is we do what we're used to. We mimic what NI did at NI Week and NI Connect, like that. And we're not limited by that, right?
Yep.
So we can do whatever we want. So, you know, we can play around with presentation sizes. We can do open spaces. We can, you know, we did the band thing one year and it turned out not so great. So we can not do a band. We can do game night. Somebody mentioned board game night earlier. You know, at GDevCon NA last year, we had board game night. Mark brought up board games earlier.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's a great event.
All kinds of different things.
And just to do your GDevCon NA bit, Bad Sam, I got the email while this was on. It's the agenda has been released.
Ah, cool. Yes. Yeah.
Full agenda.
Yeah, we're a little bit behind you guys, but we're still good. You guys,
that's your agenda has been released.
Yeah.
So.
But I think you had already released yours, or at least released who was stocking or something.
Yeah, just to talk, just the presenters. So.
Yeah. So
So
no,
Sam,
it is.
that's why you're the architect of adventure, because you are always sending us off to try out new and different things, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean, I am very much about trying new things and experimenting and seeing what works.
So speaking of new things, Summer of LabVIEW was announced at NI Connect, and it's a variety of challenges. So someone can enhance their LabVIEW skills, some good competition. One of the things I really learned about Derek Bomarito, who is Steve's partner in crime with the CTI, is Derek is just very, very passionate about kind of the DIY community and leveraging LabVIEW and all kinds of fun and different things outside the workplace. And so he and Darren Nattinger, who loves LabVIEW more than anybody else on the planet, are really spearheading this, and they have a couple of challenges that are going to be, and I think I saw the word search drop somewhere. Does anybody want to have a couple quick comments on Summer of LabVIEW and whether you've participated or know someone who's participated?
So the idea is that if a group of you get the challenge, you do the challenge. It's not competition. It can be a competition between yourselves, but it's not a competition. Not like the one that goes in the winter. I think that's 12 days of LabVIEW, whatever it is. That's a competition, isn't it? But this isn't. And there's challenges. I did have a list of the challenges. So the first one is given a 2D array of letters and a list of words to find. Return a map of words with the positions of each letter. That's this one, but there is another. That's this month's, I think. Let's see what the other ones are, just to say. No. I'll let people get it.
Yeah, I'm wondering on the Formula G though, that seems like you're going to be programming the car with the driving logic, and then that one looks a little bit more competitive, is my guess.
Well, no, I've been watching him. He's got, is it the Godot engine, the Godot GODOT engine, which is a game engine. He's driving that via LabVIEW, and he's also gonna try and do it for real. And he's a star. Derek is. Everyone needs a Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are concluding the June, I still can't say TMiLV this month in LabVIEW, TMI LabVIEW.
TMI LabVIEW. I like TMI LabVIEW.
TMI LabVIEw. I like that one. TMI LabVIEw. That's an excellent addition. So as we're closing out here, any last comments about LabVIEW or life? I'm going to say my last comment is it's great to actually be working in what I would call a home as opposed to living out of a camper van for a couple of weeks. Last time we hosted, I was in my camper van and it was a fantastic adventure. And I'll leave it at that. It's great to be home.
I got to do something for somebody else because I just like to announce a few more hands-on events that are happening in the UK. So Yotta Vault are doing one in June the 12th. No, let me have a look at the dates. And Farnell are doing one in Leeds on. So there are events coming that you can actually get your hands on and do stuff. I don't know what the issue is. These are probably going to be NI using NI materials because these are two NI partners, Yotta Vault and that. So yeah, there's two. Yotta Vault are doing one in Sheffield and one in Reading, and Farnell doing one in Leeds. I will put links in the show notes. So if you want to sign up for that, do it. We need more hands-ons.
Yeah, I will just
we need more hands-on.
They did announce at NI Connect the Partner of the Year or Consultant of the Year award or whatever, and Zach Olson won it, and Jorg was also a runner-up again this year. And there was another runner-up.
Yay, Zach! Yay, Jorg!
I didn't catch who it was. It was not somebody I recognized. Maybe I should have. Sorry, but there was another one as well. I posted, I think, screenshot on LinkedIn that captures all three of them. So cool.
Excellent. And final thoughts from our guest, Marck Hansen, who was bold enough to join the LabVIEW conspirators for an hour plus of fun excitement.
Yeah, it was fun to be part of. Yeah, thank you for having me. I don't have anything else, I think, to add to all the things we went through. I think it's great to see that the NI event went so well, and lot of great announcements were made, and yeah, I think yeah, from now I think the community has a lot going for it, and hopefully, yeah, it's gonna improve continue to improve, sorry, over the next couple of years. So that's great, I think. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, hopefully I can join another time, maybe if you would like to.
Absolutely. So as we close out, I want to say thank you to Marck Hansen. You are our master of boldness for joining us and being our first guest, and for being very transparent about some of your thinking as it relates to NI's rolling out of the perpetual license. Thankful for your boldness and the kind delivery of your thoughts there. We have also, thank you to Steve, our professor of pragmatism. Of course, we have Sam, who's the architect of adventure, and you've seen exactly examples of Sam being the adventurous individual out there. I'm Nancy Henson, Chief of Connected Conversations. Thank you all for joining us for TMI LabVIEW June 2024, Episode 2.
Cool.